And then you have in the construction industry, for example, before it is time, if you're going to work finishes at 4, by 3:30, 3:45, everybody's changing their clothes. Everybody's getting ready to leave. If I'm paying you from 8 to 4, you have to get ready to leave after 4 or at 4, not before 4, right? It means you stop work at 4. So just the basic understanding and acceptance of these terms that we signed to, we agreed to, these are some of the challenges that the private sector continue to face.
Some of them have no experience in the industry, and so when they actually show up for the job, they can't do it. And so the mismatch is that the ones who were actually trained might go directly to a job site or a workplace to apply, but those who are coming through platforms and whatnot are just not prepared for at all for what the industry is asking for. And what is most concerning is that you would get the majority of the applications coming would be for the lower level jobs. Let's say to wash dishes in the kitchen or to clean and whatnot. These are recent high school graduates, where that is the only thing that they believe that they are capable of doing.
What the skills gap really reveals is that there are areas in which training ought to be done. And it's not that we cannot do it, but it's because we have to ensure that we have the infrastructure, we have the capacity, and we have all those other things that to offer training at a higher level.
Now, the labor market in Grenada is currently characterized by a high rate of specific youth unemployment, especially among young men, combined with particular skills gaps and shortages. Now, several labor market surveys conclude that, quote, there is a disconnect between labor demand and labor supply in the state and in some OECS countries as well. Labor market experts suggest that the needs of employers are not sufficiently taken into account in the current colonial era education system, which is chided as being too academic and only geared towards orienting current students to work in the service industry upon completion, unquote. In fact, data from a January 2022 World Bank report said this, quote, having an inadequately educated workforce ranks as the second biggest business obstacle identified by firms in Grenada and in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, unquote. Now, the issue of the skills gap, which leads to this current acute labor shortage, is not new. In 2020, Laurel Gonzalez, writing in the Journal of Post-Colonial Directions in Education, said this, quote, in the 2017 to 2018 school year, the state of Grenada also equipped 5 secondary schools to provide CVQs, but only one of these registered enough students to implement the program. Of these, only 11 received a level 1 certification for general construction. And amongst ongoing efforts to reconcile shortages of skilled labor with high unemployment levels and the demands of a changing economy, the GNTA, she says, continues working to strengthen training institutions' capacities to deliver certified training. And of course, she goes on to talk about the skills gap, which is leading to these challenges of the labor shortage, which is now coming into stark focus in Grenada. Again, of course, it was first raised by Senator Salim Rahman in the Upper House of Parliament in a debate, a recent parliamentary debate, but also, as you saw here, by former Senator Chris Diali, as well as several other entrepreneurs in Grenada. And we're here to have a conversation about this. So I'm happy to be joined by the second panel, Dr. Kimoy Edwards, Mr. Samuel James, and Senator Salim Rahman. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this week's edition of the Bub Report.
Thank you for having us. Good morning, and thank you for having us, Dr. Bob.
Yes, absolutely. And of course, ladies and gentlemen, this is a very important conversation that we need to have, because Anecdotally, whenever I come home to Grenada, in my communities, whether it's in St. David's or whether it's in Four Roads, you see a lot of guys just chilling and hanging out, right? And again, I'm not making a judgment call as to why they're there, but the fact is, anecdotally, they're there. The social scientist in me says, okay, well, where is the day job? Did you work night? Where is the day job? What is happening? So I want to begin with you, Dr. Edwards, by talking about um, assessing the current skills gap in Grenada. How is the NTA identifying those skill gaps, and what are you doing? Because the NTA's mandate here is to be able to provide those technical certifications for young people to make them employable. So talk about the work that NTA is doing to ensure that this skills gap issue that leads to this labor shortage is being addressed.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Bob. Good morning to you. Good morning to the audience. So the NTA plays a key role in assessing Grenada's skills gap. But before I go to this, I need to highlight that the NTA is part of a wider grouping of associations or authorities. So we belong to the Caribbean Association of National Training Authorities, CANTA, and we have been given the mandate by CARICOM through COSOD to train, assess, and certify regional people in Caribbean vocational qualifications. Now, the NTA collaborates with industry and other stakeholders, the International Labor Organization, for example, to assess the skills gap. The most recent publication by the International Labor Organization shows that we do have a labor shortage or a labor challenge in Grenada. In assessing the skills gap, that the NTA has provided the ILO with data showing the areas in which people have been qualified, and also showing the areas in which people will need to be qualified. Now, through our marketing and communications department, as well as our monitoring and evaluation office, we have done surveys to show the areas in which there are gaps. And what we are seeing when we pull our data together, because we do have a database, the database shows that the employment area, the largest employing area, it will be in the wholesale, retail and trade, followed closely by construction, agriculture, and tourism. Now, we do advocate for matching the skills that are needed with the areas in which people ought to be trained. But as an organization, we can only do so much. And when I say this, it means that we have training providers providing training. They provide training mostly based on supply. So if you have private providers set up to provide training, whether it's in business, in ICT, tourism, this is what they can supply at certain levels. But what the skills gap really reveals is that there are areas in which training ought to be done. And it's not that we cannot do it, but it's because we have to ensure that we have the infrastructure, we have the capacity, and we have all those other things that to offer training at a higher level. So we have been looking at the data, and we recognize the need to be more granular in the approach, in that apart from the labor market information that we have collaborated with the ILO and other organizations to publish or to provide data, there is a need for a more granular and deeper approach, and that will be for a skills audit, a national skills audit, to look at the current gaps. Because what the labor market information publication of this year, February 2025, shows is that there are gaps, and the data is aggregated according to sectors. So there is the construction sector, there is tourism and hospitality, there's wholesale, retail and trade, agriculture, etc. But what the labor market does not show is that more granular approach, in that when we talk about construction, what aspects of construction are we looking at? Are we looking at welding? Are we looking at PV installation? When we talk about tourism and hospitality, what aspects are we looking at? What are the skills? So we have been reaching out to organizations our key stakeholders to discuss the need for a national skills audit, as was done in Guyana recently, as well as St. Lucia. So there is the need for that national skills audit, where we are not just going to publish bulk data by sector, but to take a more granular approach at the skills that are needed, as well as to look at how the economy of the country is evolving and what can be the emerging skills and emerging trends, as well as the levels of certification that will be needed for those.
Absolutely. So thank you for that context. Senator, I want to bring you in here. You just heard what Dr. Edwards said here in relation to this skills gap. But in the private sector, you are seeing this up close and personal. You're living this experience as employers every day. So talk about in respect of that skills gap and how that perhaps might be affecting private sector growth prospects, and not only growth prospects for the private sector, but we're talking about national and macro level growth prospects as well.
Good morning, Dr. Bob. Good morning to my co-panelists. Good morning to your listeners at home and abroad. Definitely, we have daily challenges in the market, our local market as it relates to businesses. There are so many issues. There is a skills gap, and I commend Dr. Edwards for that intent to do a granular study. But there are many issues relating to the workforce currently. There are issues of productivity. There are issues of employees not coming to work on time or scheduled for a shift and not making that shift without giving a proper excuse. There are consistency issues that plague the industry, and so we need a mind shift towards our labor market. Mindset shift. When we look at service industries, for example, we look at other economies in the world and the service that they provide, not only locally, but to the world. For example, the Philippines. We see where we can clearly see where we need to improve. We're speaking about two things here. We're not only speaking about skills. We're speaking about the way we carry ourselves on the job, our ethics, right? We're speaking about, for example, in the service sector in Grenada, in the automotive sector and in the service sector, we have employees who come to work and they have assigned their tools. And sometimes they misplace their tools. And within the employees, they steal from one another so that they have their tools and they take from somebody else's. Simple things like that upsets their ability to do work because they don't have the tools to perform the work. So, for example, they would come to work 5 minutes before the workday starts. And when they come to work 5 minutes before, usually they would come in, or many times they would come in and have breakfast at work. They'd go into a corner, take long to change, and have breakfast while the workday starts. I mean, you can't do those things. So it's not to say that it's all doom and gloom. No, don't get me wrong. I've been in the private sector for all my life. And I have some very, very, very good employees. I think I heard Senator Diali say that in your clip. I have some very good and consistent employees. But we do have those consistent issues where employees continuously come to work late. We also have a drug abuse problem in Grenada, whether we want to be honest about it or not, right? And yes, we have to prefer our local labor and protect our economy. We have to protect Grenadian jobs. We have to within the private sector, even if we need to look outside. And so that's why we need to make sure that we pull them up, so to speak, in the areas that they need to improve, because we need greater efficiency. We do need greater efficiency during the day. So productivity is an issue, definitely. And then you have in the construction industry, for example, before it is time, if you're going to work finishes at 4, By 3:30, 3:45, everybody's changing their clothes. Everybody's getting ready to leave. If I'm paying you from 8 to 4, you have to get ready to leave after 4 or at 4, not before 4, right? It means you stop work at 4. So just the basic understanding and acceptance of these terms that we signed to, we agreed to, you have these are some of the challenges that the private sector continue to face.
Now, Mr. James, you are one of the founding members of the Jobs in Grenada, which is, of course, a human resource job posting site where you field job applications from people who want to find work in Grenada. Now, I know that that is something that has been the bane of your existence, whereby you would receive resumes. A lot of the resumes are not properly written. Then you can tell that not a lot of editing went into it. But fundamentally, big picture here, you also speak to some of the attitudes that potential applicants might be having to a particular job. So can you talk about some of the in respect of that skills gap that you are seeing in HR? So when people send your resume to you, what are some of the areas of weakness you identify, but that employers are also mentioning to you that they identify as well?
Okay, good morning, Dr. Bob. Thanks for having me, and good morning to the rest of the panelists and viewers. One of the first problems I would highlight is the fact that they cannot even produce a resume. And on my site, I've had to go as far as to create a form for them to sign up because they don't know how to send an email. So when companies are asking for them to email their applications, they can't do it. They're asking for a link. Where do they click? So they don't understand the connection between creating a document and having it being emailed to our workplace. And so what happened is that in some industries, they are not receiving a lot of applications because people just don't know how to do it. And that starts from school, and now it's manifesting itself. And I have seen a vast increase in applications being received by just creating that form because they just couldn't do it. And what Mr. Araman said, I had this conversation with some colleagues just last night, and every single thing that he complained about today or spoke about came up last night. So it's a lot of people having the same issues throughout Grenada, and their attitudes. Well, that's another story because you would have people being very rude on the phone when they're looking for a job. Boss, what job are they for me? No, that just this. There's a text message they would send to the phone. When you try to engage them professionally, they would say, "Well, I ain't have time for all of that. I just looking for a work." When you try to correct them, and so they have this attitude where, yes, some might be looking for a job, but their soft skills are lacking, and I just don't know how they're gonna make it when they actually do walk into the doors of the workplaces.
Now, you mentioned the soft skills, and I will pick up on this issue of skills, but in the jobs that are posted through your agency, that are sent from employers, what specific skills that these employers are looking for, that when you get the resume, that you see a mismatch here that says, okay, well, you're applying for this job, but clearly you do not have the skill? What specific areas are people looking for employees for, and the skills are just absent?
Well, a vast majority of applicants have actually probably not finished secondary school. Their subject areas that they were successful in would have absolutely nothing to do with the industry that they're applying for. Some of them have no experience in the industry, and so when they actually show up for the job, they can't do it. And so the mismatch is that The ones who were actually trained might go directly to a job site or a workplace to apply, but those who are coming through platforms and whatnot are just not prepared for at all for the industry is asking for. And what is most concerning is that you would get the majority of the applications coming would be for the lower level jobs. Let's say to wash dishes in the kitchen or to clean and whatnot. These are recent high school graduates, where that is the only thing that they believe that they are capable of doing.
And Dr. Edwards, is there anything else you wish to add to what Mr. James just said here, especially in the context of those soft skills that he talks about? What work is NTA doing to address that issue as well? I know that you're doing an entire audit there, but is that something that's on your radar as well?
Right. Thank you very much. So in terms of soft skills at the NTA, we recognize that the hard skills, technical skills, and soft skills are important for employees to be able to function efficiently on the job. Now, we collaborate with employers to develop standards, and we currently have over 247 or so standards. Those standards are based on work or tasks that employees ought to be able to perform. We collaborate with employers to develop and validate standards through the Standards and Planning Department. Now, in every standard we have, we embed the soft skills within those, right? So we are talking about communication, literacy, numeracy, adaptability, employees being able to be trained or trainable, and so forth. What the ILO report shows, though, is that the soft skills, the employers express dissatisfaction with the soft skills. And when I looked at the report, it was a bit damning because it was about less than 35%. And work ethics in particular was around 25%. However, when we did a survey previously, about 2 years ago, that survey showed that the satisfaction of the employees in terms of the skills and soft skills was around half, around 50 something percent. So it's still not 60, 70 or 80. So we recognize that we need to improve. We are in the process of reviewing. So we are reviewing standards, and in standards review and validation, it's not just about validating the hard skills, but everything that goes into that particular training. Yes, I also wanted to just piggyback on what Senator Rahman said about what Mr. James said about the skills mismatch. So the students are spending 7 years in primary school and just around 5 years in secondary school. And the skills mismatch will continue if we don't change our approach to education. At the NTA, we provide career counseling services through the Department of Training Support. And career counseling means that we provide support to the Ministry of Education, as well as to other stakeholders, our employers, our training providers, on careers that young people can follow. Now, if you were to go on the NTA's website, you will see that available. In terms of the career support, we recognize that the young people need the guidance in skills from as early as the primary school. So it can't be that after they graduate, they decide that they want a job. It has to be as early as the primary school. We provide information on about 9 sectors and over hundreds of jobs and skills that young people can get connected to. So at the NTA, we are working to address the soft skills as well, but we recognize that the training has to start very early in terms of those people taking up lower level jobs. And this is true. The data is showing that the higher level jobs are mostly occupied by those who have at least a higher degree qualification. So whether that is CVQ level 4, and CVQ level 4 will be the equivalent of a bachelor's degree, more or less. Bachelor's degrees, master's degrees, etc. So they are the ones who are being employed. They are the ones who are taking up the jobs. But we do have that crisis where if we don't change the education system to introduce not just the technical skills, but the soft skills, as well as having apprenticeship schemes where our young people can be involved in the workplace from a very early age, to show what it means to be trainable, how to adapt to the workplace, then the challenge will continue. Dr. Bob, you are muted.
Yes, I want to pick up on what you just said at the end there. And that has to do with having apprenticeship programs and things like that. However, we do have a laundry list of apprenticeship programs in Grenada. Shall I list them? There is the Imani program. There is the Youth Biz program. There is the Empower program. Let me see what else there is. There is the Grenada Youth Upliftment program. There are all of these programs under the Division of Youth that we have had for several years. So the question I have is, in the context of this skills audit you're doing, is there also going to be an audit as to the efficacy of these programs? This is not a critique of the programs, because I'll bring in the rest of the panel to have this conversation. But to what extent are these programs addressing those gaps that we're talking about today?
Right. Thank you very much, Dr. Bob. And just a little bit of correction. So we have not yet started the skills audit. Okay. This is something we are in discussion.
Intending to do. Thank you for that.
Yes, intend to do in collaboration with partners. So the efficacy of the current programs that you have listed may have been called into question to a certain extent, but we do want to emphasize that the programs have had an impact on the young people, as well as the training stock and the employment stock in Grenada. I recently attended the SIEP graduation closing ceremony about 2 weeks ago, and listening to the testimonies of those who have been involved in the program, it has been very beneficial. We also have ongoing programs taking place, whether it's the Youth in Agriculture Entrepreneurship Program, the EBT training program, mental in health and wellness, for the barbers, cosmetologists, etc. And it is having a positive impact on the trainees. However, what we need though is measuring. So we are going to be beefing up on our measurement, evaluation and learning mechanisms, in that apart from highlighting all the programs that currently exist, we want to be able to collect the data, to measure the impact, to assess this, and look to see ways in which we can improve on those particular programs. Talking about apprenticeship in particular, apprenticeship is not just putting trainees together and saying, okay, trainees, we are giving you training and you can go into the workplace to perform particular tasks. Apprenticeship is it has to start with a social dialogue. It's intentional. Currently, the Caribbean Association of National Training Authorities, in collaboration with SAGE, are working together, to develop a regional apprenticeship framework, because we recognize it has to be more formalized. We are going to be looking at that legal framework that will address the issue of wages or salaries, the rights and responsibilities of the workers, the attitudes. So attitudes will involve the soft skills and hard skills, the need for the tools, having the right tools for the job, how long they are supposed to stay on the job, and all of that. So there are programs that are taking place, but we recognize that there is a need for a more formalized and intentional approach to apprenticeships, to ensure that the apprenticeships function in the way that they should. And we're also going to be looking at having those monitoring, evaluating, and learning mechanisms to really measure the impact, learn from what happened, and come up with mechanisms for improvement.
Mr. Rahman, I'm sure perhaps in your line of work you've encountered trainees from either of those apprenticeship programs that I articulated here. Is there anything else you wish to add on that? Because again, I believe that was one of the things introduced to address the skills gap issue that we're having. And of course, we also have NULO. Let's not forget the work that NULO has been doing for decades. Yes?
A lot of what Dr. Edwards has just mentioned is needed. And I'm happy to hear that it's not only thought of, but it's been actioned. We have to recognize the conditions under which our employees live. So, for example, in recent history, the government increased minimum wage. The business sector accepted that wholeheartedly. As a matter of fact, most within the business sector were already paying above that minimum wage, including a new minimum wage. And so the business sector in large part had no problem with that. So in many cases, it's not the wages, it is what is surrounding that, the environment in which the employee lives, the stress that the employee has within their home environment, the lack of encouragement or motivation that they may have. So Dr. Edwards spoke about primary school and secondary school and tailoring these students towards a better employee or a more skilled employee. It has a lot to do with their background and where they're coming from and their self-value. You know, we don't teach our children to speak up. We, in our culture, when our children speak out of turn, we tell them hush. You know, and so we a lot of creativity is stifled at a young age. That's why I said a mind shift, a mindset change, because we have to understand that we have to allow our children to speak up with respect. We have to make sure that if they don't get proper leadership from the home, proper parenting from the home, we have ethics in school, so they know right from wrong. They know their responsibilities. They know when they sign a contract that they're supposed to do this, that they ought to do it. And then once that mindset is there, is created from a young age, they will receive the training and they will readily accept that training and they will be confident enough to perform. I have people coming into my workplace and in other workplaces that they don't have the level of confidence. You can clearly see. And when they get a little bit of pressure, sometimes even from their peers in the workplace, they're ready to leave. They're ready to quit and so on. So that's because the grounding wasn't there. And a lot of people, and they come into interviews, many of them, and they don't even know how to carry out the interview. They will maybe receive a phone call and they will tell me, hold on, or they tell the interviewer, hold on, I get an important call.
In an interview?
In an interview, I've seen that myself.
That's insane.
You know? So I'm saying that, you know, it starts from very young. We need to understand that not every home is conducive towards towards having that strong ethic in that individual. And I'm speaking about, and I spoke about it in the Senate, I'm not speaking about a particular religious orientation. I'm not speaking about, I'm speaking about general ethics and morality, responsibility, understanding. You know, some young men, I have to tell them about young men, usually a lot of young men have bad habits. And you have to tell them, you know, put aside some money. Are you putting aside money for your child's education? You know, I have that conversation. And many of them appreciate that conversation. Only yesterday, I had a conversation with a young man. I served on the board of that organization for many years ago. And when his name came up, he was problematic. And they thought about firing him many times. His name came up. And today, he's still there in that organization and he's doing well. And I spoke to him about, you know, you see what I was telling you back then? And he said, yes. And I spoke to him about making sure that the next generation, you instill the values that you have learned now in your children to make sure that they do better than you do. And so we want to make sure that the best jobs in Grenada go to Grenadians.
Yeah.
Put it plainly, we don't want Grenadians continuing in their own country. Yeah. Right? And in order to do that, they need to change their mindset. It's not just a work you're looking for. You're looking to better yourself and your family. You're looking to better your country. You're looking to have an impact. This is what look at what's going on in the United States now. They're looking within. They're trying to better themselves, bring manufacturing back to the United States. They're trying to, and they have their America First policy. We need to have our Grenada First policy, or regional or a CARICOM First policy. And as it relates to farming, for example, I've said it before, we have not seen farming improve significantly in the last 20 years. We have seen less and less production in that area. While we have construction growing, we have the tourism economy growing, we have new flights being, coming all the time, and more visitors. And we have a Grenadian product. We have certain fruit juices and certain products, cocoa tea. You could go to a hotel today and get a cup of cocoa tea for breakfast. In all of our hotels, who is making it? Who is producing the products that we grew up with, that we know that taste good, that we'd like the tourists to? So when they taste it and they have a local Grenadian experience, who's working in that service sector that they come in and they can add and complement the hotel when they come in? So that entire mindset is not just a training session. That's what I'm speaking about. That entire mindset needs to be from small.
It's a holistic mindset. It's an all of society really approach here.
Yes.
All of society approach. Mr. James, is there anything else you wish to add to what both Dr. Edwards and Senator Rahman said?
Yes, I would. I would get complaints almost every day, and it stems back to training at home. And we have to understand that we have a problem where people are not prepared for parenthood. They're having children. We don't have, at least I don't know of places where parents can go for counseling on how to be a parent and how to, because we have a different generation right now, and how we grew up and how we approach things, it can't be the same old same. Social media right now teaches instant gratification, a glamorous lifestyle, and what people are being paid right now, it can't support that kind of lifestyle. So our young men would turn to things that would give them more money and instant cash. And so this is what we are competing against. We're here campaigning for an honest day's pay for an honest day's work, but an honest day's work these days can't give them the lifestyle that they want, and it's a problem. And this is being right now, music is the vehicle for this type of behavior, and the videos that we see, and we need to do something about it. It's disheartening when you go to school fairs and you'd hear the same music being played at the fair and nobody bats an eye, where it's destroying the young people and how they think and painting this picture that this is what life is about. Now, several companies have called and said that they've scheduled appointments for interviews. One said they had 40 interviews scheduled for a day, only 8 showed up, and they were only able to hire 2. One said that she ended up calling a young man to ask him where he was. He said, well, he couldn't come to the interview because he's at the barbershop having a trim. And so they are not even coming to the interviews to begin with. And this is a problem. We have mothers of homes calling workplaces to find out if there are any jobs for their children because the children are like interested in doing it themselves. And in one situation, a guy was called to attend an interview and he said he didn't apply. It was his mom who applied on his behalf. And so the parents really want to get their children working, but we need to motivate the children to work. And it's a social issue we're having in Grenada, where sometimes you believe life is a bit too easy for us because we get to eat every day. There's always some fig in the backyard. Somebody can ask for something. And so we are not hungry for work. And the government, I know they're trying their hardest, but they can't control every single thing. It has to start in the family. And schools play a very big part in fostering this type of behavior, in curbing it, I should say. And we really need our teachers to make sure that they are preparing our students for the wonderful world of work. It's not just about getting education and passes, but it's about preparing them for work. And you can't have people leaving work, leaving school, and they can't formulate a proper sentence. They can't do basic arithmetic and these types of things. So it's something that needs to be looked at, and it's an urgent matter.
Absolutely critical and very important. And perhaps given everything here that both Senator Ram and Mr. James mentioned, I can understand why there is a need for you gentlemen to say that we have to import labor, perhaps ditch the CARICOM work permit thing requirement there. But Dr. Edwards, let's pick up on that. Let us talk about the specific areas of skill that if a young man or a mom is listening to this conversation right now, that they should be looking at upskilling, reskilling, retooling their young men and women to get involved in, to get trained for.
Right. So thank you very much. And before I answer this question, specific areas of skills that they should get involved in, I wanted to connect with what Senator Rahman said about agriculture. So when we look at our reports 2023 and 2024, we recognize that even if we have the most standards in agriculture, so we have about 25 different training schemes in agriculture at the NTA, we found that at the end of the year, when we put the data together, the numbers were quite low, like 7 and 8 and 9 citizens being trained in agriculture. So an initiative last year and continues into this year to address that problem through the CDF, CARICOM Development Fund, and the Ministry of Youth. The NTA has been collaborating with these organizations, these stakeholders. So there is the Youth in Agriculture, which I mentioned initially, to train young people in agriculture. So that's the first cohort, 100 in agro-processing, and that will address well, that ties in, directly to some of the things Senator Rahman said. So there is a Youth in Agriculture, agro-processing, farming and animal production, etc., crop production, which addresses that challenge we see with young people not wanting to get into agriculture. There is an upcoming training scheme as well, Youth in Agriculture again, 200, and this time it looks at general agriculture, amenity, horticulture, aquaponics, hydroponics. So I will encourage those members who are listening to connect the Ministry of Youth. You can also call the NTA for additional information, or you can visit us 8 to 4, Monday to Friday, for additional information. In terms of the jobs that we would want others to get into, our standards are quite vast. Like I said, we have over 247 or 250 standards in a wide variety of areas. And we work with training providers. We have approved training centers and training providers, around 20 to 24 within Grenada, offering training. Those areas are we have training in agriculture, so the areas I just mentioned. We have training in different areas of business. We have in construction, and when we talk construction, we are talking, we have training in welding, in building construction, site supervision. We have training in cosmetology. We also have training in early childhood education, training and development. So it's quite broad. We cover a wide range of areas. Tourism and hospitality, we're looking at food preparation, we're looking at all of those different areas. So there are areas that the young people can get into, but we also recognize that the conversation has to be extended to the emerging trends. We do recognize that the young people are some of them, I should say, are very involved in social media. We have those digital entrepreneurs. We have those who may want to get into data analytics. And in fact, an IDB report shows that within the next 20 years, within the Caribbean, the jobs that are needed today will shift. And talking about agriculture, agriculture is also shifting in that there is that emphasis now, or there will be that added emphasis on infusion of IT in agriculture. And we are talking about drone technology and predictive analytics, right? So, in talking to young people about the jobs, we cannot just look at what is existing now, but we also have to be able to look at those new and emerging trends. There may be young people who may want to get involved in manufacturing, who may want to establish factories and so forth. But how will they be using robotics in manufacturing? Because this is the way in which the world is moving. Those who are into the computer that they're very much attracted to and love so much, what about training in cybersecurity? And we do know that the government has also initiated some level of training in cybersecurity. So we want the young people and their parents, as well as those who are already employed and who may be looking to upskill or reskill, to recognize that the job market is changing. It's no longer going to be simply a local job market. And I heard earlier mention about ensuring we have jobs for Grenadians. But if we are talking about regionalism, I know we are not yet on that topic. I'm not sure if you intend to go on that topic, but with the enhanced cooperation that will be coming into play through CARICOM, we do recognize that our borders are going to be opening more, and the question of work permits may not be needed. And so, as a nation, we have to ensure that we are not just training Grenadians for Grenadian jobs and having jobs for Grenadians. We cannot speak like that, because we have to recognize that we are small and there's only so much we can do. We can also train our people to be able to go out there and work. We can, as a nation, reflect on the region and recognize that whereas Grenada can be a hub for agriculture, Guyana can be a hub for energy, right? Or Grenada may be a hub for solar energy or whatever type of clean energy we are promoting. A hub for traditional boat building or marine and yachting, and we have those standards as well as at the NTA. I just needed to highlight that. So whereas we recognize that Grenada can be leading in certain things, we have to think as a region and also ensure that we are training our people to be able, if they are not able to get a job in Grenada, or if based on their preference, they may want to work within the region, then so be it. But I think we can't just think locally. We have to think regionally, because regionalism is what's happening within the Caribbean shores. And as I said, at the NTA, we are connected to CANTA and COSAD, and we have to ensure that we are training people for the region.
Absolutely. Dr. Bob. Doctor,
yes. Please pick up on what Dr. Edwards said.
Yes, absolutely. We have to have an integrated labor market within the Caribbean. However, we in Grenada have to fix our own house, to put our house in order. Meaning that we have to compete for the best jobs within the region, not only in Grenada. And in order to do so, we need to up our game. And in order to do so, we need to have good ethics. Because you can't go and get a job in the international market or in the region and do some of the things you get away with here.
Yes.
So that's the point. And also, we need to understand the importance of food production in Grenada, because we cannot keep importing food inflation in Grenada. So that is a must. In the same way that math is very important, English is very important, being able to communicate is very important. Also, understanding food production is very important. That is a must for every Grenadian to learn, to understand where their food is coming from, what it takes, and to be part of the solution as it relates to food. Because we're blessed with a good climate, we're blessed with rainfall. You could spit out a seed and it grows in Grenada still, thank God. And so we need to make sure we take advantage of that. So because we come from a indentured service and the horrors of slavery and so on, and that negative background, a lot of our parents and ourselves have turned away from agriculture because of that scar, of the scar of those things, of that oppression, because it's linked to oppression. But really, it's linked to our health. And we need to understand that new narrative, and we need to teach it, and we need to practice it from the time we're very small. Our children need to learn how to farm. Yes.
Yeah.
And so if food security is national security, it's part of national security, right? And so that's why I said that I agree with Dr. Edwards. Look at the amount of training programs that she just mentioned.
Yeah.
But how many subscribe to it? How well is it attended? That's the problem. And Mr. James spoke about social media. I couldn't agree with him more. The abuse of social media. Social media is good. The use of technology is good, but the misuse of technology is not good. So how are you going to use the technology, and how are you going to prevent the misuse of technology? That has to do a lot with parenting. What type of access you give them. With regard to my children and raising my children, there was a certain time when I would unplug the internet in the house, right? And so nobody had access to the internet, because it's time for reading a book, or time for doing some activity outside, or we're going outside to plant something in the backyard, and you need to join us in that. And so we need to make sure that we from small, we know what we want the Grenadian citizen to look like, what we want, what are our ideals, and we need to protect our children from overexposure to social media. We need to make sure that we teach them the ethics and the love for study and for education, and let them understand that the world is their stage, really, because when Grenadians leave Grenada, like you, Dr. Bob, the world is your stage.
I want to go over you, Dr. Edwards, now for some closing comments as we end this segment.
Okay, thank you very much. So in terms of closing, I just wanted to highlight that point about building, construction, the need for supervisors. So we have recently concluded a training scheme in building, construction, site supervision. That's in collaboration with Cantor, Sidima, and the TMR Show Community College. So it's a CVQ Level 3 certification for those who are in the construction industry. So if there are any contractors or builders out there listening, you can reach out to us to find out more about that program. In terms of closing, I just want to highlight that the labor market is shifting, and Grenada has to get with the times. We have to be ready. We have to be able to address those shifts in labor market, not just culturally. I know we spoke a lot about the cultural elements today, the attitudes to work, but we also have to be able to diagnose the problems socially and politically. So socially, we have to examine the groups that are underemployed or unemployed. We are speaking specifically about the women. We do know that even if the women are the ones to access more of the training, and I'm not just talking about the TVET training, but also in the traditional academic areas. So even if the women are the ones to access, because of the social structures, the women are the ones who are most susceptible to unemployment or leaving employment to be able to take care of families, because women are still the main caregivers. We have to also address the underqualifications as a social aspect. So looking at the data showing that if you have only attained up to primary or secondary school, you're at a higher risk of being unemployed or underemployed. So we have to look at our census data and all our labor market reports, identify those individuals, and be able to come up with schemes to be able to train. We have to look at youth unemployment as well. And like I pointed out, there are youth programs that are ongoing. We need to be able to look at the economic aspect. If we ought to offer training at a higher level, we need to be able to fund that, as well as the political aspect. What are our active labor market policies in Grenada to promote the development of training schemes, whether it's for agriculture, business, construction, education, training and development? But we need to have active labor policies that will promote training schemes that are connected to different areas. And finally, I believe all of the stakeholders must speak closely to one another, and this is where a labor market information system will be crucial, so that when the policies are being developed, we are speaking to the right people. So we are connecting all the dots. We have labor being involved, we have education being involved, we have economic development and planning, we have the NTA, all our providers, as well as our employers. We have to be able to connect the dots and speak to one another in policy making, so that we make the right decisions. And finally, I know I said finally, but finally, our employers and all our stakeholders, we thank you very much for your collaboration with the NTA over the years, and we are looking forward to continued collaboration. Thanks to the hardworking team at the NTA and the GCTVET. The team is really exceptional, and we are going to continue to interact with our Grenadian people. Thank you.
Absolutely. Senator Rahman, sir, over to you, sir, for some closing comments.
Thank you. To our young men and to our men in general, you need to step up. Men need to lead. God Almighty has selected men to be prophets, and so to lead their people. And so leadership is not a question mark for men, it is a must. So you need to reskill, retool for the companies. Invest in your employees. If you have employees that you see that are good for your organization, invest in them. Help them, fund them, and even if you have to tie them to a contract for a period of time to get your investment back, do so. It is not possible for all Grenadians to afford the type of education and training that they need. So it is a job of businesses who want that change to help to fund that change. And Dr. Edwards, I look forward to that meeting that you speak of with regard to the private sector and your agency, so that we can help to bridge those gaps and help our people to come up to speed. Thank you.
Absolutely. Mr. James, sir.
Thank you, Dr. Bob. I would just like to point out that for the Jobs in Grenada page, women make up about 65 to 70% of its subscribers, which is stark in comparison to the men. They send in the most applications, maybe about 80 to 90% come from women through the page. And so it tells a story as to where we are as a country and what our men are actually doing. As Senator Rahman said, that the men need to step up, and I have the data to prove it. We also would like to see more. I'm talking about construction because I'm biased to it because it's the field I'm in, but I speak for all industries. But we like to see more women in construction as well. There are a lot of jobs in construction, apart from the labor, but it's quite a vast industry, and we want to see more representation there. And I myself have just concluded the CVQ construction site supervision at TAMCC, and it was a very good program. I would encourage people to take part in it, check out TAMCC and NULO and to see what is available. And you have to study to show yourself approved, as the Bible says. And a lot of these things we can take into the profane. And it is very important that we just don't want a job to get money, but we want to build ourselves. And I understand, yes, we do have bills to pay, but we also have to want what is best for ourselves and for our country, and to make and to be proud of what we are doing. And you would want to offer your best self. It's not just about showing up to work when you want or if you want, but it's about going there and putting your best foot forward. A lot of the times you see managers in companies, they and supervisors. Some of these are the people who have burned the midnight oil, and now you're seeing them reaping the rewards, and you just can't come straight out of school and expect to be paid a higher salary. Yes, you should be paid a livable wage. I understand that, and I am against exploitation. But at the same time, you have to be willing to do what it takes to be successful, and there has to be a change in your attitude, and it's going to serve us all well. And part of your education, well, your education really is to make you a productive citizen. And we have too many people who are also being educated, but there remains too many unsolved issues in our society. And your education is supposed to make you um, productive and to solve problems, not just to make money. And for the amount of economists and all these things, I can say we shouldn't be in certain situations that we are in. So, how can you go and contribute and to be a better